Episode of the Get Made podcast. I'm your host, Hassan Clay. And as always, I thank you for showing up. I thank you for showing out. I thank you for all the comments and suggestions that I've got on the previous episodes. And I hope that this episode will continue to give some insightful information, spur some thoughts, and looking forward to the feedback that I will receive from this. As always, you can catch us streaming on Facebook and YouTube via Restream. So let's get into this week's podcast. Well, I know the title of this episode was probably a little eye-catching. And I know that it probably is going to stir some thoughts and it's probably going to upset some people. And you know what? It's going to be okay. We're going to manage ourselves through this. Just going to get to the other side and we're going to come out better and we're going to make it happen. But the mantra of happy wife, happy life, that's what we're going to talk about today. And I want to let you guys know, all of you who are listening, men and women, my brothers and my sisters, friend or foe, whoever happened to be listening to this podcast today, that is probably the most craziest mantra I've ever heard in my entire life. That mantra has nothing but inequality in it from the beginning to the end of it. So now that I got that off my chest, let's talk about it a little bit. So for many of us men who have subscribed to this thought of happy wife, happy life, what we've been taught is that if our wives are okay, everything is going to be okay. Everything in life is going to, as long as she's happy, everybody should be happy. As long as she's smiling, everybody else should be smiling. As long as things are evolving and revolving around her, then we're going to be okay. Well, just think about that for a second. And I want you to hear how lopsided that sounds. How crazy it is that I now have to denounce myself in order for my wife to be okay. There's nothing about me that I should be advocating for, because that's what you're saying. A man should then not advocate for himself. Now, again, I want us to think about how I've talked about in previous episodes about this pendulum, the swinging of the pendulum. It's swung too far to the left. Now it's swinging too far to the right. And we have to be in a position to where we set that thing right in the middle, because it really is about balance. And the happy wife, happy life mantra does not denote balance whatsoever. Now, I understand that this has been a male-dominated life, and everything has revolved around a patriarchal understanding, and sometimes it seems like women do not get their voice heard, and I get that. So, sisters, I want you to know that I get you, right? But brothers, I want you to know that I get them too. And the swing of using that mantra, even though it probably has some good intent behind it, it still missed the mark. Because what we should be working towards is equality. Equality amongst men and women. Shared responsibility, shared partnership. All these things that makes us stand together and make us invincible to other things that may truly try to plague our marital relationships. So let's see how we can do something a little different. First and foremost, my brothers, again, it's about adjusting the crown of my brothers, because this is the Get Made podcast. So I'm definitely speaking to my brothers. First and foremost, stop that silliness. All right? Real talk. Stop that silliness. Don't you ever let that come out your mouth again. All right? That's one thing. And here's why. Because you're playing yourself. Okay? You really are. You're playing yourself. Because one thing about it, you don't believe it. You don't feel, you don't think, you don't know, you don't nothing that you have none of you forcing that down your throat to and then up your throat to regurgitate that foolishness. All right? Just want us to be clear about that. You know, you choking down something that you really can't swallow. And then you throwing up something that really not going to be good. All right? So first and foremost, stop that. But we have to be in a position, if we're going to remove something, then we have to replace it with something better. Okay? So here's what I want you to think about. How do I then replace that with something better? How do I then say, okay, it may be, you know, I think they try to use the mantra, happy spouse, happy house, happy spouse, or whatever. I'm done with these mantras, really. But I want you to understand that equality is the way. Partnership is the way. So when you are listening to your wife, you're listening to her concerns. You are taking in what it is that she may have on her mind. You are contemplating and reflecting over it. You're showing her that, you know, I think Stephen Covey wrote in his book, one of his 7 laws was seek and understood. This is going to be one of the things that you do. You're going to seek to have some type of understanding of where she's coming from before being understood. And you're going to also ask for that. See, I'm not sitting there saying it's all going to be about her. I'm also showing you how to do this for yourself as well. Advocating for yourself. It is okay to advocate for yourself. Really, it is. You're not weak. You're not overbearing. You're not anything other than trying to get your needs met, and you want to meet her needs as well. So here we go, talking about partnership, right? There's shared responsibility that takes place. It may be different responsibilities, but nevertheless shared responsibilities. There may be some division of the responsibilities. She may have 1, 2, and 3. You may have 4, 5, and 6. That's okay. And you may be supportive of her in 1, 2, and 3 as she's being supportive of you in 4, 5, and 6. That's okay. Look for the support. Look to give the support. But by all means, stop this foolishness. Stop this thinking. You know, a lot of times as men, we come up in these single, family household, these single mother households. We learn a lot of these mantras because we see our moms going through different things. Hey, I've learned that myself. I had a mother who tried to raise 2 children, and she was doing it on her own. She was married at one time, and then to protect me in that relationship, she left him. All right. And she did it on her own, uprooted from what the people that she had known all her life to go somewhere that she still went to family, but she really didn't know that family members as well. She got to learn them and love them. And she grew with them, but nevertheless, she took off to save me. And I respect the fact of what it is that she had to do in order to take care of me, right? So now, with that being the case, I've always tried to be in a position of making my mom proud. That wasn't my wife, that was my mother, right? But nevertheless, she was a woman. And I wanted to be in a position of honoring and respecting all women that I came in contact with. Now, I ain't gonna say I'm perfect, so don't get it twisted. But nevertheless, I tried to be in a position of honoring women to the best of my ability. And a part of that mantra was the honoring. In some instances, I took a back seat to what it was that I was actually looking for in a relationship. And when I tried to exert myself a little bit more, then it's because I had not established that exertion from the beginning, then it became I was talking aggressive. And in some instances, because I am trying to exert my manhood a little bit more, and I wasn't doing it in probably the most proper way, I can see where that took place. And as I have gotten older, I've learned, okay, maybe that quite wasn't the right way of doing it. So again, here I come talking to my brothers and showing how to not fall into these traps and how that mantra of happy wife, happy life is a trap. It's a true trap. And it's something that we really cannot sustain. It really is not something that's sustainable. So if we're looking at how we're going to have partnership again starts with being able to listen, being able to take in information, being able to assess and evaluate that information, reflect on that information, and then trying to meet a need. Also, making sure that you are having your needs met, whatever those needs may be. Now, here's the next part of that. You may not be able to meet that need as well as she may not be able to meet that need. Okay? Let's just be real. Sometimes we come into a situation and understanding these needs be a little bit be too much. All right, it just be entirely too much. Sometimes we be having some far-fetched stuff of what we want to take place. All right, we want you to do a handstand. We want you to twirl around on your head. We want you to scissor kick and then come make lunch. All right, that's just not going to work. All right. We just have to be realistic about what we are asking a person to do. All right. We understand that, we want our wives to kind of be submissive and serve us or do things that's going to feel good for our thoughts of who we are, our personal egos, or whatever you want to call it. Right. We want that to take place, but we have to have some type of boundaries in that. And I want you to think about the boundaries. So as you begin to understand and I want you to recognize boundaries. Then after that, third, hey, maybe you might need to negotiate these terms. It's okay. You may not be able to do this, but then tell me what it is that you're capable of doing. Let me know what it is that you are capable of doing, and if I want that from you, and if I don't want that particular thing from you, maybe you might be able to hear me say, okay, you probably couldn't do what I initially asked you to do, and then you said what you can do. Let me see if you probably can do this right here, because I know you couldn't. You said you couldn't do that part, but maybe you can do this part right here, because that might give me satisfaction, and vice versa. Right? You're just not going to sit there and, paint the house, clean the windows, and come in and do the laundry. You just probably ain't going to do that. Right? But there is something that you actually probably could do that shows partnership, that shows it that she's not in it alone and neither are you. And then lastly, I want you guys to understand, and again, I'm talking to my brothers. This is how you then establish leadership within your home, because it all comes back to leadership. When they see you doing it, they will be willing to do it. When they see you making these concessions or you making these adjustments, then they, talking about your woman, would be more inclined to make those adjustments. It's going to be a little, it's going to have its trial and errors, and that's okay. Trial and errors are okay, right? There's going to be some 2 steps forward and some 1 step back. And I want you to understand something. If it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back, you still gained a step. Don't worry about that. You actually still gained a step. And if we keep 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, we're still moving forward, right? So I want us to look at this thing, and part of my series right now, between last week and this week, is start looking at how these so-called traditional roles have really plagued us, and how we need to really have a new way of thinking and execution of what it is that we're thinking. How do we execute this plan? How do we make this plan work? How do I get on my wife, get on board with me, and I'm on board with my wife, and then we are cohesive. We are this unit. We're not just sex partners or roommates, or we're sharing bills, or we're splitting bills, and all this old type of stuff here because we're just trying to make it work, right? That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about establishing a true marital relationship, a relationship of interdependency, of trust, of companionship, of consideration for one another, right? These 4 things right there is what is the building blocks, part of the building blocks for the relationship. So again, we have a clear understanding. I can't reiterate this enough. Stop this happy wife, happy life mantra. Stop it. Don't teach it to your sons. Don't allow it to be taught to your daughters or anything. But what we should be teaching is how we can have shared responsibility, shared partnership, shared concerns, shared considerations. There's no big I's and little U's in relationship, none whatsoever. And when we can do that, when we can have this momentum, we can be unstoppable. But my brothers, this starts with you. Starts with you. I've been hearing a lot of complaints about how women are, again, the masculine energy and this and that and all this other type of stuff here. Well, part of that whole masculine energy is you taught them to be that way. You helped them to be that way. And part of that has been this whole mantra of happy wife, happy life. So with that, in this podcast for this week, always, I welcome all comments, suggestions, good or bad. You can say, Hassan, you crazy as hell, right? You can say that. That's okay. I take that, right? Just pay attention to what it is that I'm saying and deal with what I'm saying. Don't just give me your thoughts because you're in your feelings, all right? Hey, I ain't gonna tell you no lie. Again, I'm gonna keep it moving if it's all about your feelings. I'm gonna be considerate of you, but I'm gonna keep it moving, right? But I do welcome any dialogue that can take place because, again, I have to walk the walk that I'm talking about walking. I want to be able to listen and hear and get suggestions and get feedback. And if I'm kind of off base somewhere, even be able to correct myself, and have some correction. This thing is how we make it work. Again, I'm under the philosophy that there's no big I's and little U's here, right? But I want to make sure that I understand, that my brothers understand that if we don't make this walk right, we're going to continue this foolishness that we've been dealing with for the last, I don't know how many years. almost basically my lifetime. And I just want to make sure that somewhere along the line, we change the trajectory of what's going on. Those who are coming up under us shouldn't have to continue this nonsense that we and some of us who are a little bit younger than I am have endured over these last few years. Not only as men, but also as women. We got to correct this thing, because if we don't, nobody's going to do it for us. So with that, we're going to see you guys next week. And again, thank you for tuning in.